Hey everybody, DJ Justin here with Listen Up Productions. Here's another tip of the week for you. Today we're going to talk about amateurs versus professionals. Amateur DJs versus professional DJs. What is an amateur? What is a professional? And how do we tell the difference? And why does it even matter? It matters to me, and so I'm going to talk about it, and hopefully at the end of this it'll matter to you too. I'm primarily going to be speaking from a wedding DJ standpoint, although it really could apply to any DJ that you're going to hire for your event. So you have to ask yourself, is this person that I want to hire an amateur or a professional? And how do we tell the difference? In this industry, in this business, it's kind of hard to define amateur versus professional. Typically in the sports world, we define an amateur as someone who doesn't get paid versus a professional who gets paid. In our business, that really doesn't work because even the amateurs are getting paid. Usually they don't get paid as much. I hope they don't get paid as much. So that really can't be a criteria for determining whether or not someone's an amateur or a professional. You could say, how many days a week do you work? Well, that doesn't work either because the majority of our work is done on the weekends. Now, those of us, who are running multi-ops or something like that, yeah, we do a lot during the week too. We've got a lot of managerial stuff that we have to do. Emails, phone calls, client meetings, that kind of stuff happens during the week, but still predominantly the bulk of our work happens on the weekends, just like the amateurs. So you really can't use that either. What it boils down to for me is experience. That's what determines an amateur, and the difference between an amateur and a professional is how much experience do they have. Now that can go for whatever genre you're in, whether you're a club DJ or you do primarily school dances or whether you do primarily weddings. How many of those events have you done? How many do you do a year? That's going to give you experience. That experience is going to translate into professionalism because hopefully you're going to learn as you're going through the process, and you're going to learn something new all the time. People are constantly learning. I mean, I've been in this business for 27, almost 28 years, and I'm still learning stuff. And mostly we learn from our mistakes. So you're going to constantly learn new things, new ways to do things. You're going to learn from other individuals in the field, and you're going to gain experience. That translates into being a professional for me. So how many events do you do? That basically is what it boils down to. If it's tough for us as people in this business to define what's an amateur and what's a professional, it's got to be even harder for clients to determine the difference. Simply because, and as I said, I've been in this business for almost 28 years. If it's hard for me, and I've seen a lot, I can imagine that someone who's just jumping into this and scratching the surface, how hard that's got to be. So I have come up with a few questions, a few things that you can ask your potential DJ that will help you, it will guide you into determining whether or not they're an amateur or a professional. And the first relates to what I was just talking about. How many have you done? Now, specifically for wedding DJs, how many weddings have you done? Have you done 3 or 5? Do you do 3 or 5 a year? Do you do 10 a year? Do you do 40 or 50 a year? How many have you done? Now, I couldn't tell you exactly how many weddings I've done. I know it's well over 500. So, my experience is there. I've done a few. So I can't give you an exact number without going through all my records. But they should be at least able to ballpark you a number, how many they've done. If they can't tell you, I've done 5 this year, or I've done 10 this year, they're probably an amateur. They probably just don't have the mileage. And can they provide you references? Ask for references. If your DJ cannot or will not provide you with a list of references, recent references, they're probably an amateur, and they're somebody that you want to avoid. They should be able to at least provide you with a list of recent references from the last 12 to 18 months. And I don't mean 2 or 3 references, I'm talking like 10 to 15. They should be able to hand you a sheet with some contact information and say, feel free to contact any of these people, and they can tell you about my services. If they can't or won't do that, stay away from them. Avoid them. They are not a professional. Another question you can ask is, are you insured? Do you carry insurance, and can you provide me with proof of that? Professionals carry insurance. We have to. It's just a smart thing to do. Accidents happen. A lot of times, weddings in particular, people, Uncle Joe and Aunt Sally tend to have a little liquid courage before they get out on the dance floor. And there is an indirect relationship between the amount of alcohol consumed and the amount of coordination that people have. As the alcohol goes up, the coordination goes down. And accidents happen. If Uncle Joe gets a little sloppy on the dance floor and trips and knocks over a speaker stand or a light stand or something, or stumbles into the table and a speaker falls over and smashes little Susie on the dance floor, and now we are off to the races in a wonderful little game that I like to call Who's Getting Sued Today? Because somebody's going to get sued. Unless your DJ carries liability insurance. I'm not talking about homeowner's insurance on the gear or renter's insurance so that your equipment is covered. I'm talking about liability insurance. And a lot of venues that have entertainment will require proof of insurance from your DJ because they don't want to get sued either. Nobody wants to get sued. So make sure your DJ carries insurance. If they don't, it's probably a good red flag that they're not a professional. Another question you can ask is, do you belong to any professional organizations, any national organizations? Name, the National Organization of Mobile Entertainers is a good one. The American DJ Association is another one. Very well-known national fraternities, national organizations that most professionals belong to. I'm not saying they have to belong to those, because a lot of people don't. But it's another question that you can ask that will kind of send up a red flag for you. The majority of the amateurs don't belong to those because you have to pay yearly dues, and it's an expense that they simply don't want, so they don't go in for those. Professional DJs, you usually belong to them. It's a good way for us to get a discount on our insurance. It's a good way for us to be able to network with other DJs around the country, find out what trends are happening in equipment and in music and in events and things like that. So it's just a good idea that professionals belong to them. So it's a question that you can ask. Another question you can ask, and probably one of the most important questions that you can possibly ask, is where do you get your music? From what source does your music come? And if your potential DJ answers, well, I buy it, that's not a good sign. Everybody buys their music in some way, shape, or form, unless they're pirating it, unless they're downloading it off the internet illegally, which happens all the time. A lot of these amateurs go out there, and rather than spend a lot of money in music libraries, good music libraries are expensive. They're very expensive. But downloading things on the internet is very cheap. In fact, it's free. It's also illegal and can get your DJ in a lot of trouble because the licensing agencies, the RIAA and others, do send investigators out to events. And they check up on DJs, and they follow these websites where people are allowed to download music, and they follow the pirating sites, and they check up on ISP numbers, and they go find these DJs. And they, to date, no event has been shut down in the middle because the DJ has pirated music. But they have no problem going up to a DJ in the middle of a show and saying, I need to see proof of your purchase. I need to see what music services belong to you. Show me your computer files. Show me your watermarks from your services. And they ask for proof of purchase. And if you can't provide that, if your DJ can't provide that, they will then give you a cease and desist order. They will say, this event is your last, you're done. And if that happens to your DJ the week before your event, and you suddenly get a phone call, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't do your wedding in a week, now you have to find another DJ in a week for your wedding. That's kind of a big thing. So if your DJ can't show you where they get their music from, and it's not a legitimate source, that's a big red flag. That is a huge red flag, and it should be an automatic deal breaker for you as the client. You should simply go, no, I'm sorry, I don't want to mess with that, and walk away and go find a pro. Amateurs do that kind of crap all the time. Pros don't. So there's a little bit. Why does it matter to you whether or not someone's an amateur or a professional? Well, amateurs are less invested in your event. They're significantly less invested than you. They're less invested financially. They're less invested in reputation. If they don't have anything or they don't have as much on the line to worry about, they're not going to care as much. Now, your event means a lot to you. Speaking from a wedding standpoint, it's the only one you're going to get. This amateur, this weekend hobbyist who's out there, who's not really spending much on equipment or music and doesn't really care if he gets another job because it's just a hobby for him or her, they're less invested, so they don't care. And if they get shut down or something breaks, oh well. But it matters an awful lot to you. So that's a reason why it should matter to you. Amateurs don't have the experience. As I said earlier, they don't know how to adapt to the things that happen through the evening. They simply just don't have that mileage. The MC for your event has a huge impact on your reception's mood, on your event's atmosphere. The MC plays a big part in that. If you don't know how, or if your entertainer doesn't know how to properly read the crowd and anticipate things and work the crowd, that's going to lead to a pretty unpleasant reputation for your reception. It's not going to go well. That experience has to be there for those kinds of skills. Amateurs don't have those. Professionals do. And it all comes down to a matter of mileage. How many events have you done? The more you do, the more you learn. And the more you learn, the more you know. So it's a very simple process for you to determine if someone's an amateur and they don't have that kind of experience, that's going to lead to an unpleasant reception for you. As I said, amateurs are less invested. They don't carry any backup gear. They go out, they spend $1,200 or $1,500 on a bottom-of-the-line system, and that's the only system they have because it doesn't matter to them if they have redundant backup, because the event doesn't matter as much to them. Professionals carry redundant backup gear. To date, knock wood, I have never been shut down for more than a few minutes if something goes wrong. And accidents happen, things go wrong, equipment breaks, nothing is infallible. And so if you don't have redundant backup as a DJ for your equipment, something goes down, like a power amp or a computer, that event's over. If that's your wedding, do you really want that? Do you want your DJ to go, no, I'm sorry, I only have the one system. I don't have anything else, so I guess we're done. Wow, geez, thanks. Maybe you should have gone with a professional. That's what it really is. And DJs who charge less spend less on gear and on reputation. If they're an amateur and they're not making a lot of money, they're not going to spend a lot of money because for them it's just a hobby. They don't really care. It's your event, and if it carries any significance for you, it should matter to you whether or not your DJ is an amateur or a professional. If somebody is really, really cheap, that's a really good red flag that they don't have a lot of experience, or they're just doing it as a weekend kind of hobby thing, and it doesn't matter to them. They're less invested. They're less invested via reputation and by money. And they simply don't care enough about your event. They don't care about the event as much as you do. That's a big difference between an amateur and a professional. A professional will care about the event almost as much as you do. I'm not saying as much because we're not the ones getting married, but our reputation is on the line, and that matters hugely to us. Reputation in this business is everything, and one bad review will travel at light speed, 1,000 times faster than a good one. And so we strive every single day as professionals to build our reputation, not tear it down. Amateurs simply don't care enough about their reputation because they're not in it as a business. They're not in it to grow a business. They're not in it to grow their reputation or anything. They're simply doing it for fun. And that's fine for some people. But if your event holds any significance for you, if it matters to you a lot, then it should probably matter to you whether or not your DJ is an amateur or a professional. And that all boils down to experience is the best judge of whether or not somebody's an amateur or a professional. Ultimately, the choice is yours. But, as I said, if your event matters to you and you want to make sure that it is successful, then the choice is pretty clear. That's amateurs versus professionals. I'm DJ Justin with Listen Up Productions, and I'll see you on the road.